Release the Kraken!
Welcome back, fellow game designers. Ron here at Lame Studios. And in this one, we're going to take our chair that we've been working on and bring it into our house in Unreal. So if you've been following the house tutorial, doing lighting and all that setup, you should have something that looks kind of like this. And now we're going to take the chair that we made and add it to our house. So jump back in. Let's grab our chair. Make sure we're in object mode. I'll go to channel box. Let's go ahead and clear off the history. And I'll turn my grid back on. So grid, back. Just make sure your chair is situated so its feet are on the ground. Edit, delete by type, history. Then go to File, go down to Export Selection. And then I'll put this in my classes folder. This will be SM for static mesh, simple chair. Over here under geometry, let's make sure that the smoothing group's checked, smooth mesh, and reference asset content. And then for animation, we have none, so just make sure animations are unchecked. Our export type is FBX export. And then go ahead and export that. Jump over into Unreal. And you can go to import, or you can just drag it in from a folder. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag it in. It's not going to let you drop it into your viewport, just go ahead and drag it to content. And then this is going to be a static mesh, so we don't need to check this one. Auto-generate collision? Sure, go ahead and let that happen. And then that's all well and good. Go ahead and import. I'm just going to drag that in here. Now it's going to import it. I dragged it into my maps folder. Just go ahead and right-click on content. We'll just go ahead and create a new folder. We'll call that one static mesh. And then inside of content as well, add new folder. We'll call this one textures. And I'll also do materials. So new folder, materials. So inside of content, we should now have materials, static mesh, and textures. Jump back to my maps folder. I'm going to grab this material. You can tell it's a material because it's got a round icon. It also has a green under little border there. And you can see if I hover over it, where it says the name, it has material in parentheses. And drag that to materials. Move here. Grab the texture files. Take those to textures. Move here. Grab my static mesh chair. Take it to static mesh. Move here. That way our maps folder just has our map in it, and our chair is just in the static mesh folder. I can just drag that in, and look at that. And it's been sized to kind of go with the rest of the house, which is nice. It's about the same size as this chair, roughly. Hey, look at that. And if you look, you can even see that normal map really pushing through. Now this is way too granular. And it's also very glossy. So let's go ahead and fix that. Go to the materials, double click it. Let's go ahead and zoom in. I'm going to drag these over. I always like to put these in weird spots. Okay, so we have our color value, we have our texture or our normal value. Let's go ahead and take this and pass this through a parameter. Take this, and we're going to do a flatten normal. So off the line here, flatten normal. And just plug this one in. And then we use a scalar for our flatness. So scalar parameter. Oops. Call this normal value. And then we can apply a certain amount to the flatness here. So if I do, 0.5, it gets half as flat. 1 is all the way down. We hit apply here. Go ahead and save it. Okay, I'm going to take our chair. You see it looks flat, fine. And go into our material here, go ahead and right click. Let's create a material instance. And so what the instance does is it parameterizes our material so that we can talk to it directly live in the editor. So this is good for a static material, but if you want to actually modify it in code or have access to it after you create it, you want an instance of it. So go ahead and drag the instance to the chair, and then go ahead and double click on the instance. It's going to open up this wonderful menu here. But check this out. Now we have a normal value. If I open it, and if I drag this down, you can see in real time the amount of the material. So if I want to have just a little bit of wood grain, just like that, you know, that's plenty. Let's go ahead and work on the shininess of this thing. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. Let's open up the material. And now let's grab some scalars for our roughness, metallic, and specular. And those are pretty simple. Go ahead and drag this up. I'm going to do another scalar. The hotkey is S, by the way, so hold down the S key and just click. This one is going to be metallic. So metallic. Drag that in. 0 is fine. Plug this one into specular. We'll name this one specular. And to be consistent, like I did normal value, you could do specular or metallic value. And this one will be the roughness. Let's make some room with this one. Roughness. So wood is pretty rough. So I'm going to do a roughness value of 1. Specularity. If it has any kind of lacquer or whatever on it, you might have a specularity value, so maybe 0.01. Depends on what you have. My chair is made of wood, so there's going to be no metallic value. I'll just hit apply. And actually, since there's not going to be any metallic value, and I'll show you the difference here. I'll hit save. If I minimize this now and open up the instance, you can see we have these values to play with. Now if I want to make this more or less shiny, I can check metallic and just add a value. And now it has the metallic property applied to it. If I take the roughness down to 0, you can see there that glossy sheen. And of course, if I ramp specular up, I get more of that. Let's turn metallic down to 0 and keep specular up. So now we have where it looks like it's just a really highly lacquered chair. Like it's brand new, been freshly lacquered from the factory. Maybe I'll bring the roughness, halfway up. This is about where we were originally. So this is really up to you how much you want to put on this. I think I have roughness close to 1, maybe 0.8, and then a specularity of 0.25. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to save that. And then for my metallic, because I actually don't need to ever modify the metallic of my chair, since it's always going to be made of wood instead of metal, I can actually remove this. So if I go into my material here, instead of using a scalar, since I don't actually need one, I can use a constant instead. And a constant actually uses less memory, and since you don't have to actually program to it, why not? So I'll go ahead and delete that one. I'm going to hold down the 1 key and just click. That's going to make a single constant. So it's just a box to hold a number. I'm going to plug that in. It's always going to be 0, so it'll never change. So I don't have to worry about programming to it later. I'll just hit checkbox. And now you can see inside of our material instance, we no longer have the metallic in there because we don't need it. But there we go, we have our chair. And then the one thing we should definitely do with our chair is fix the collision. Because if we go into our static mesh here, if we grab our chair, and you can actually go down to static mesh and just double click here, or you can go to static mesh and double click on this guy. Go ahead and open this up. Let's go up to the top here and go to collision, and then simple collision. And you can see we have this collision box. This does not make for good sitting. You'll find that characters bounce into this, or if you try to stand on it, it's gonna not let you do that. The first thing you can do is come down to your autoconvex setup and just dial it in and hit apply. And it'll give you something like this. But this is way too dense for our chair. We don't need to have this amount of fine detail. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and just clear off our collision. So collision, we'll just remove. And then go to collision, come down to add simple box collision. Okay. I'm going to grab my scale tool. I'm going to go into a side view. Let's change this to a left is good. Actually, that's a front view. Well, relative to our chair, it's kind of a front view. Let's go to the other. Let's go to an actual front. There we go. Because our chair's turned, our front and our side are different. And that has to do because of Maya. Maya forward is Z, and left and right is X. But in Unreal, forward is X, and left and right is Y, because Z is up. So it's just one of those things. Anyway, let's go ahead and grab our scale tool. We'll just scale this down. Grab our move tool, which is W. Just move this into place. Scale. And my scaling isn't quite as precise as I would like it to be, so I'm going to go up and grab my box here. I'm going to turn scale snaps off by clicking the little arrow scaler and just manually dial this in the way I want. That's probably plenty. Grab my move tool. I'm going to go into the front view here, or in this case the side view. Make sure that we're good, and we are. And then lastly, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this to make the back piece. So hold down Alt, click and drag the arrow, drag it up, and then let it go. I'll center this, and then I will just scale it. It doesn't have to be too perfect. Check my other view. And then I gotta scale it in the Y direction. So scale, and then move it into position. And we don't want situations where a character could get snagged on it. So right here where it overlaps like that, I'm gonna uncheck my move snap. That's this little grid here. I'm just going to move this like so. And close enough. Okay, so if I go back into the main world here, just go ahead and save real quick. Let's do a build, lights only. Okay, so there's our lighting built. And here's our chair with our light baked onto it. If I move around, our chair, the wood color of our chair, doesn't quite match the general color vibe of our scene here. And that doesn't really matter. You know, different houses and such have furniture of varying color, but whenever you're creating a scene and you have some power over it, it's kind of good to try to match aesthetically colors together. Like this orange tone is a little bit strong, but it does go with the brown that's in here. Same thing with the couch over here. But this one just doesn't seem like it fits with the rest of the setting. But I can control that inside of the material. So let's go ahead and open that back up. And right around here at our top where we have our base color, let's go ahead and create a multiply. So hold down the M key and then click. There's one. I'm going to just make some space. I'm going to plug our sample into the A channel. I'll plug the multiply into the base color. Now I need to multiply this by something, and I really want to desaturate our color or be able to increase the saturation if I desire. Now there is a saturation option, so if you type in saturation, you have a desaturate and a saturate, and they kind of work the way you would expect, but I would like to make these by hand. So I'm going to basically come down here, and I'm going to hold down the M key again and make another multiply. Plug that in. And I'm going to multiply this by a color and then a value. So I need a scalar, so hold down S and click. And this is going to be my color. And I guess you could name this saturation. Let's go ahead and do that. Name that saturation. That makes more sense. I'll plug that into the B channel. It doesn't really matter if it's an A or B. Multiplying is the same, whichever channel. And then for the other part, I'm going to go ahead and make a vector parameter. So go ahead and right click. We're going to do vector. And then P for parameter. I'll grab this guy. This is going to be the color. I'm going to take the top pin. This is my RGB pin. Plug it into A. And I don't want to multiply this by black because that's going to be 0. So multiplying anything by 0 is always going to get us 0. So instead, I'm going to change my color value to white. So I'm going to jump in here. And I'm just going to do 1 all the way across here. So 1 gets us white. Don't worry about the alpha channel. That's fine. We'll leave that as it is. So we have 1, 1, and that last 0 is fine. We're not really have to worry about that. That's these different pins. So this is the first one, second one, third one, and then this one is the that little 0 that's there. For our saturation, let's go ahead and just make this 1 for now. And you'll see that gets us pretty much the same color that we had to start with. Hit the apply button. I'm going to jump into my scene here. And not much has changed, but now we have the option, if we open up our instance, to dial in the color value. So I've got color, and there's my saturation that's down here. So I can pick it if I want to. But if I check my saturation box and I adjust this, you can get a darker shade of brown that will match your setting a little bit better. I'm going to dial this up. Don't go too crazy as you dial these. If you go too insane, you can sometimes crash Unreal. So just be careful of how high or low you go with this. But I think kind of like that right there. Let's go ahead and save that. Alright, and that'll wrap up this tutorial for our simple chair. Hopefully you found this to be educational. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Hey guys, thanks for checking out my channel. Misty and I both thank you. If you've enjoyed that video you just watched, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, I do have official merch and a Patreon somewhere in the link down below. Updates for things that are coming along. Of course, we are at 1,000 subscribers, and that is awesome. We're still doing voting for what project I'm going to work on next, like what big project I'm going to work on next. So make sure you head over there and do that. Also, keep your eye out for the devlogs for Blockout and Rocket Flip. Those are 2 games that are coming out for Lame Duck Studios, officially released and all that good stuff. And if you guys want to see how those are being put together and the process that I've been going through, stay tuned for that. You'll be seeing those coming up here soon. And don't forget that I create new content on Sundays and I release content on Wednesdays. So stay tuned, and I shall see you next time.